What's up, guys? Welcome to Rob's house. We are still in coronavirus quarantine, so I am still throwing darts. This is going to be our second installment of our throwing darts series while we try to figure out why the Corvette is leaking. I have a new hypothesis. I saw that there was some coolant all over the crank pulley, which is right underneath the water pump assembly and pulley. So today, we're going to install a new water pump and new water pump gaskets. Actually, the pump is functioning fine on my car. I'm not sure if the pump itself has a crack in it. I doubt that. I think that the culprit is more than likely one of the gaskets on the rear. The symptoms that I've narrowed down so far are that the car doesn't leak when it's hot. So when it's running up to temperature, pressurized, it's fine. When I shut it off, it's fine. It's not until the car starts cooling down that it dumps a bunch of fluid on my driveway. So I think that something is expanding and sealing when it's hot, and then when it cools down, the leak is reintroduced, which is why it was confusing to troubleshoot. Because I could go on very long drives and not lose any coolant, and then when my car was sitting in the driveway, I'd lose a whole bunch of coolant. Anyway, I figured I will show you guys how to change out a water pump on a C6 Corvette. So we'll see if this fixes the problem. All right, guys, I've done some prep work here. First of all, I've drained the coolant out of the Corvette already. Once we start disconnecting these hoses, it would be like a waterfall. So things that need to come off. So our pump is actually located right here. We can see the hoses, the lower radiator hose. Things that we gotta take off, we gotta take our air intake hose off. You've seen me do that in other videos a bunch of times. It's pretty easy. We need to take our serpentine belt off, which is easy. You just relieve the tension on this tensioner and you can take it right out. There's nothing in the way of the belt, so I can just kind of snake it out. I may not even take it all the way out. I think I'm just gonna move it to the side. Then we can disconnect all of our hoses. So we'll disconnect our upper radiator hose, our lower radiator hose, all of these hoses connected to the pump. We then need to take the tensioner. The tensioner assembly is actually bolt. There's another bolt in here that you can't see because the intake hose is in the way, but you can see this one bolt right here. The tensioner assembly, which the pulley is connected to, is just held on by those two bolts. So we'll take those off. That'll allow us to remove the tensioner. Then we can start working on the actual water pump bolts. There's 6 bolts down there that we need to remove. Then we can pull the pump out. And then there's actually where the lower radiator hose connects, you can kind of see it right here. There is a thermostat assembly here that once the pump is out of the car, we need to not only put this cover on the new pump, but the new pump didn't come with a thermostat. So if we come over here, we see this exposed side of the pump. So we're gonna put our thermostat in here and close up the housing on that. Then we can reinstall this pump. Like I said, the pump itself is held onto the car by 6 bolts. So we have 3 on the left-hand side of the pulley and 3 on the right-hand side of the pulley. These 2 are for the tensioner. So once we have the water pump reinstalled, we'll reinstall the tensioner. We'll just do everything in reverse order. So we'll reinstall the water pump, we'll connect all the hoses, we'll reconnect the tensioner, we'll put the serpentine belt back on, we'll put the air intake back on, and then we can fill it up with coolant and see if our problem has resolved. So that's pretty much a brief overview of the steps we're gonna take today. Let's get started. First things first. All right, first we're gonna take this air intake hose off. So it's pretty simple. We're going to remove these 4 screws right here that I can just undo with my hands. Okay. We need to remove this. It's a hose clamp, we just need to loosen it. It's 8 millimeters. Okay. Now we need to disconnect this sensor, this mass airflow sensor. And now we can pull the air intake hose off. I generally do it from this side of the car. Yeah, it comes right off. Let's take these coolant hoses off next. Use an 8 millimeter. Here, just put this paper towel in here. Okay. So all I'm doing right now is I'm just kind of tucking these hoses out of the way just so that I can get at the water pump when time comes, although. Okay. Let's get this serpentine belt out and then we can pull the pump off. Boom, easy mode. Oh, that was almost bad. Good catch, hose. For this, we're gonna use our short socket and our long socket, just because some of the bolts are easier to get to. So you can use these automatic ratchets like manual ones to help you get stuff like that out. It's torqued on, so you can loosen it. This is the tensioner. Let's get the pump off. Use our 10 millimeter. So these are some long screws. This thing does have a light on it, which makes it way easier to see what the hell I'm doing. All right, those are the easy ones. It's one, which is extremely difficult to see. I'm doing this all completely by feel. You guys are getting the exact angle I'm getting, and it is loosening. There she is. Oh, geez. That's really on there. I had to use my body weight there to get it loose. It's actually hilariously easier to grip the socket by hand. All right, they're all out. That was annoying. Okay, that made a huge mess. I am very, very glad that we took that tensioner off first. All right, here's the pump. Oh, we've got fucking coolant all over the floor. All right, guys, so I've done some Googling. I couldn't find a torque spec for this. Everyone just says kind of get them tight and don't overdo it, which I have done. The water pump bolts, they say first pass 11 pound-feet, final pass 22 pound-feet. So that's the same as the header bolts, basically. Header bolts, I think, are a little less. They're like 18 in the final pass. Then the tensioner bracket bolts are 37 pound-feet. So when we reattach the tensioner, we gotta be mindful of that. With that said, let's get started on reassembly. We have these new gaskets here. All right, so this is where things get tricky. What we're gonna have to do is get these bolts threading through, right? And not lose the gaskets in the process. We have done harder things. All right, well, let's just give it a shot. Here goes nothing. All right, we got it on. Basically, I'm just going to hand tight all these, and then we're gonna get the torque wrench. All right, guys, so after I shut the camera off last night, this happened. This bolt, as I was torquing it to the factory specs, snapped. So that was pretty scary. I pulled the pump off and then used some needle nose pliers to get it out. If we come back over to the car, I have the pump installed with a new bolt kit, courtesy of JT over at Freedom Motorworks. So shout out to JT for hooking me up on short notice. He happened to have an extra set laying around that he gave to me, which is awesome. So the pump's in. So now we can begin reassembly. So the steps, as I mentioned before, this is just going to be the reverse of the disassembly process. So it's pretty simple. We're going to reconnect all of our hoses. We're going to put the belt tensioner back on. Once that's done, these bolts for the belt tensioner get torqued to 37 pound-feet. Once this is torqued down properly, we can then reinstall the serpentine belt. Once that's done, I can put the air intake hose back on, and then we can start refilling the system. So let's get started. All right, so let's do this all in reverse order here. I'm gonna start with our lower radiator hose. Bit of an awkward spot. If you are a climber, you'll have no trouble reinstalling this because it's a lot of finger strength. Okay. There we go. Now we have our other two hoses here, which I had, strategically tucked away. Okay. All right, those are on. Upper radiator hose. Okay. All right, tensioner. All right, so we gotta torque this now. There it is. Okay. All right, so we can put the belt back on now. Just feeling the underside of the crank pulley, make sure that the belt's on. Seems like it is. Okay, we can put the air intake back on now and fill her up and hope that nothing leaks. There. Connect this guy. That's it. Next, the really annoying fill-up procedure on this car, which is to literally fill the reservoir, cycle, fill the reservoir, cycle, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, that's pretty full. Moment of truth, I guess. We need to wait until that coolant starts to drain, so we have to wait until the car gets hot. The car's still cold. We gotta wait for it to warm up for it to suck the coolant through. So anyway, this is gonna be an iterative process where I just wait for the thermostat to open and the system to start pulling coolant through. Fill it up a whole bunch of times, and when it's full, I'll report back. So be right back. All right, guys. Doesn't look like we have any leaks. We got the coolant system filled back up, so you know, I'll drive it this weekend and see what happens, see if we're still leaking. I haven't noticed any leaking on the floor as I was filling the system back up, so we'll see. Hopefully this is the end of our throwing dart series, but you know, I don't want to get ahead of myself. So anyway, I'm gonna get this thing all cleaned up, put that engine cover back on, get it off the stands, and I'm gonna get this thing off the stands, drive it this weekend, and hopefully it doesn't leak. So thanks for stopping by. I hope this video was helpful for any of you Corvette owners out there, and see you guys next time.